In addition to the human tragedy of Malaysian Flight 17 that was shot down over eastern Ukraine, there is also a series of international legal issues that arise. These issues are important because at some point, victims of this tragedy are going to call out for justice. And of course, justice for serious international crimes is a major theme within international relations today. So, what does the law say about this? What may be appropriate avenues that might open up? One question that arises is, can Russia be held liable for this? Now, obviously, answering these questions is difficult now. We don't have a lot of evidence. We don't know who shot it down. We don't know who not only shot it down, but may also have helped finance that. So, let's work with some assumptions. Let's assume, as I think the United States administration is doing, that the people responsible are pro-Russian rebels in eastern Ukraine, intent on creating a new state, and a state that is part of Mother Russia, so to speak. If these rebels shot down the airplane, how could Russia itself be held responsible for that? Well, under international law, they can be. Under international law, if a state is effectively in control of a non-state actor, a rebel group, on the territory of a foreign state, then that state that exercises effective control over that group can be on the hook for the activities of that particular group. This test has been raised in the past. It has been involved in tying the United States, for example, in the 1980s, to the activities of the Contra rebels in Nicaragua. It has been invoked to tie Slobodan Milosevic to the actions of Bosnian Serb nationalists on the territory of Bosnia in the 1990s. So today, this idea may yet get currency once again. The effective control test is going to be based on evidence and factual findings. There is going to have to be shown a connection between Russia and the rebel group. This is going to have to involve resource support, material support, political support, and the extent to which those rebels operate under some kind of command, supervision, or control of the Russian government. If this evidence is found, and if, in fact, it was the rebels that shot down the plane, then the possibility arises of financial liability on the part of the Russian Federation, as well as other forms of civil responsibility. The civil responsibility, however, isn't the only form justice can take. One can also have criminal responsibility. And here, criminal responsibility could lie on the shoulders of the individuals who fired that particular missile, whether it is pro-Russian rebels or whether it's the Ukrainian government itself. There's a counter-narrative out there, another story, largely circulated by Russian media outlets, but with some traction, that suggests that the Ukrainian government may actually be involved in this. Okay. So let's say that we can identify who shot it. Then the possibility of criminal punishment arises. Shooting a missile into a civilian airplane could be a war crime. In order for it to be a war crime, you'd have to show that there was an armed conflict ongoing in eastern Ukraine at the time. I think it's pretty clear that you could satisfy that threshold. Even if it wasn't a war crime, however, it could be a crime against humanity. And crimes against humanity are a series of violent acts that target civilians that occur in either wartime or in peacetime. So this could fit within that particular framework. Finally, of course, it could be a terrorist act, and it could also be prosecuted as such. The differentiations among what the crime is, however, matter when it comes to actually prosecuting. Of course, prosecutions could happen at the national level. They could happen in Ukraine, for example. Prosecutions could happen internationally, at the International Criminal Court, for example, based in The Hague. Neither the Russian Federation nor Ukraine are parties to the International Criminal Court. However, the International Criminal Court still could assume jurisdiction if the Security Council referred this matter to the chief prosecutor. The Security Council's done this before. It referred the violence in Sudan to the International Criminal Court, violence involving Omar al-Bashir, the Sudanese leader, over his objections. It also referred violence in Libya to the International Criminal Court, and right now Libya is proceeding against the son, for example, of Muammar Gaddafi. It could do the same here for this terrorist act. Now, politics come in. If the connection is made to pro-Russian rebels, in all likelihood the Russian Federation would veto that referral. And as a permanent member of the Security Council, it's within its right to do that. If the evidence ties it to the Ukrainian government, then the Russian Federation is not going to veto and would actually probably be quite keen on this matter going forward, not only to unearth the truth, but also to suit a political agenda that would be compatible to its own. Finally, though, the big stumbling block to both of these legal avenues is actually not a legal one. It's not one of ideas or strategy or possibility. It's one of evidence. And a lack of evidence would bedevil any form of legal proceeding. Right now, pro-Russian rebels are effectively obstructing any form of international investigation. They have limited or denied access to the crash sites. Evidence has been tampered with, whether intentionally or just through inadvertence and negligence. Bodies are either rotting or are being brought to a freezer compartment in a train. Evidence is being moved around, including aspects of the fuselage of the airplane that could actually shed light through forensic evaluation with regards to whether or not a missile shot down the plane. They could look at the kinds of damage. Without evidence, there can't be a legal proceeding. And it's interesting, because we often think that these great international crimes, these situations where hundreds of people, innocent, are killed in the name of nationalism, politics, ethnic supremacy, whatever it may be, we think that these crimes are often easier to prosecute than an ordinary homicide at the 7-Eleven or an ordinary armed robbery at the corner bodega. But that's not true. It is actually much more difficult to often secure evidence. The larger the number of victims, the more high profile the activity, and the more injurious the violence. And we see that narrative being played out here once again in this current situation.